So Zach, your CTO, does he have a team of people underneath him that he's working with for developers, or is he kind of like a one-man deal, or how's that?
Yeah, so it's just us. So Zach's background is full stack engineering, so he can handle anything when it comes to that. My background, so it's funny, the mechanical engineering side, I still have a lot of the design engineering and things like that. So I'm doing more front end. So we have our full team is just 2 people. But the systems that we have in place and the platforms that we're using has been making it easy to really just build what we're building. The other thing too, Jared, is the fact that, like, I would recommend for anybody starting out as a small company, whether it's tech or whatever, is starting small, starting in a focused niche, and that's what we're doing. We're not trying to hit the masses of sports bettors, and focusing on that and just growing from there. If we can hit this small niche, and we can start bringing in revenue, then we can start bringing on more team members, right? But just starting small and growing from there.
Yeah, it's not important. It's really important not to overextend yourself as you scale up, which a lot of people do. A lot of people go capital intensive, and they're trying to bring in money to, and it puts a lot of stress on that right in the beginning. So you guys starting out and just hammering on what you guys can handle right now, and as you scale, like adding people in the right time frames is definitely an important and a smart decision relative to.
And every company's different. Like for us, this is not the original path. Like 2-3 months ago, Jared, we had a completely different idea. We had done a lot of customer research. We had basically mapped this entire plan out. Like we're going to get investment. We're going to use this specific company to build the front end. We'll take care of the back end with a few more hires that we bring on. And we weren't able to raise the money. And we had to make some pivots towards, all right, let's continue bootstrapping and see where we can get ourselves. And so that's where we're at now.
Bootstrapping, I know a lot of people who bootstrap their businesses, funded out of pocket or even funded from their 401ks, which I don't recommend, by the way. But if it's, there's a lot of different avenues to fund a business and startup, right? And being a little bit more patient and trying to really do it on a shoestring budget can really, really pay off in the end, right? I think one of the things a lot of entrepreneurs and startups do is they think they need tons of capital. And when they start looking at that option, they give away too much equity. And once you lose control of the equity, it can be kind of really for an entrepreneur whose idea is to have this company. You've got investors who are taking a lot of that equity. It can be a little defeating, right? It can actually bring down the vibe within the company. So guarding the equity closely is really, really smart for any startup venture, I think.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be able to have that focus going in, right? Like being able to bootstrap this, and we're still learning as we go and learning who our customer is. And so it almost forces us to chop the fat and focus on what's the most important thing to solve this problem. And growing from there. If we weren't bootstrapping, then we're just like, let's throw it all on this app. Let's do it all. And then we might not hit the mark, right? Once again, different for every industry, every company, but that's just the route that we've experienced.
Sure. Now I know you've done a lot of marketing, or not necessarily just marketing, but networking and trying to market the actual company. You and I have been involved in some different networking groups, and we've had some really good times in those.
Some beers together.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find yourself doing a lot more networking in this initial phase of your business, or are you more focused on app development at this point?
Right now, I would say I'm as much heads down app development as possible. Just because that's where we're at. Like that's what we need the most of is how quickly we can get this tech to market. At the same time though, I'm still reserving, like just this past week, I've had a few different conversations with brand ambassadors, our customers, just because you try as best to do everything in parallel, right? Before we started building, we had a lot of different conversations with sports bettors to understand their needs, what they're missing out, what the biggest problems they're having. And if I can, or if anybody that's building something can talk and have those conversations while they're building, you can just get constant feedback. Like all of this, everything that we're doing is kind of just this massive feedback loop. Like we're building the alpha in hopes that we get a bunch of feedback from our current customers saying, this sucks, this is awesome. use that feedback to build the beta, get feedback from that, and just kind of like take steps at it, right?
Sure.
And these little steps, although take time, I believe you can create a much better product if you're getting direct feedback. So just to answer your question more fully, like I would say the majority of my time is spent with app development, but I try to, as much as I can, talk to our customers and get their feedback right off the bat.
Focused on that is voice of customers so critical, right? Especially in the stage you're in, and just really listening to them and getting their feedback. But I love how you're building this iterative process, right? It's like a step ladder. It's like, hey, we got this foundation. Let's get their feedback. Let's improve. And it's that plan, do, check, act cycle. And you keep iterating, and that's how you move up quickly, right? You aren't doing this in a vacuum. And I think that's, one of the things a lot of new companies or whether it's in the app development world or whether it's in, any other entrepreneurial venture, mainly in innovation, a lot of people try and do this stuff in a vacuum. You can easily convince yourself you're hitting the mark when maybe you aren't. So
yeah.
Kudos to you guys for definitely taking the time to go out and get that type of feedback.
I mean, it's so important. And especially if you're bootstrapping, like you don't have the time or the money to build something and realize, that didn't end up hitting the mark, but it's kind of a force to get you to do that. Sure. One of the things that, it's been on my mind lately is this idea of there's certain parts of our app and our company that is new and is innovative, and we really need to test to make sure it's going to work.
Sure.
But there's other areas that are like very similar to a competitor of ours or what other people have done in the past. And so just kind of throwing a question back on you, but what are your thoughts on needing to reach out to customers and talk to customers then when you've seen it work in other areas of business or within competitors' areas?
Well, that's an interesting question. Definitely, I think there's value to it, right? Because we can make some assumptions of what the value that the customer is taking away from it, but it's better to hear directly from the customer themselves. Like, yes, this is a competitor, and you may be using their platform. Well, what is it that draws you to that? What is it? A convenience thing? Is it a service type of benefit or value? Finding the value add or the main value of what they're offering, and then understanding a second piece of that, which is because you're offering a competitive product, right? What is it that would make them pivot or switch to another platform? What is it that they're not getting through this one that if they had that option, it would be a slam dunk and they cross over? I really think there's a lot of value in having that input from the customer from that standpoint. Because once again, we make a lot of assumptions going into this. And not everybody thinks the same way we do, because people come from different aspects of life, different, points of view and perspectives. So having that actually on record is a huge benefit to you developing that, alpha or beta.
Yeah. No, I like how you put that. Like we have basically every idea that you come up with as a startup is an assumption. Like you're assuming that this might work and you need to solve that assumption to prove that out, right? And when you see like a competitor or another area that has worked in the past or that you assume has worked in the past, you still need to kind of solve that assumption, like going to your customer or going to whoever and seeing, is this feature actually useful? Do you use this? You might think it is, but to that customer, it might not be.
Let me ask you, as far as other people listening to the podcast who maybe are going down a road like this, where they're developing an app or they're developing some technology and they're doing their first startup, what words of advice do you have for them?
That's a good one. The phrase on my mind lately has been think big, start small. Have an awesome, massive vision. If you want to take your company and make it massive, have that vision, put that vision in your mind. But know that unless you know your market absolutely perfectly, it's probably going to change. And start small. Don't think you need to start trying to get to this huge stage right off the bat. You need to learn, you need to iterate, you need to test, you need to talk to customers and figure out what people truly want and how you can truly solve their problems. So think big, but start small.
Additional links discussed can be found in the comments section below on YouTube. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you found the information useful. OPSQC Inc. podcast, sponsored by Paylocity.